Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a framework that has literally reshaped how millions of people think about personal and professional success. We're looking at Stephen R. Covey's absolute classic, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And look, if you're thinking this is just going to be another list of quick productivity hacks to help you blitz through your emails, think again. What we're actually looking at is a profound, incredibly logical journey of deep human development. So get this. Covey actually built these 7 habits after reviewing something like 200 years of success literature. And he noticed a pretty massive trend. See, the older historical works, they focused heavily on character ethics. We're talking deep integrity, humility, courage. But more recent stuff had totally shifted toward quick fix personality tricks and, honestly, pretty superficial public relations strategies. What Covey found is that true, enduring success means returning to that holistic, principle-centered approach. It's not just about, memorizing a new management technique. It's about fundamentally changing who you are from the ground up. And that brings us to this seriously powerful concept. Covey emphasizes a crucial shift in perspective, the inside-out approach. You can't improve your relationships or your output by trying to manipulate the outside world first. You just can't. You've got to start with yourself. More specifically, you have to start with your true motives, your character, and the very lenses through which you view the world. Think about it. If your glasses are cracked, everything you look at is going to seem distorted, no matter how much you try to fix the scenery around you. To help us digest all this, here is our roadmap for today. First, the inside-out approach. Second, private victories. Third, public victories. And finally, the upward spiral. These habits build on each other step by step. So let's jump right in. Starting off with Section 1, the inside-out approach, and setting our foundation. This whole foundation relies on our natural growth as humans, which Covey calls the maturity continuum. Now, we all start out completely dependent on others. Think about an infant. They literally cannot survive without someone else doing everything for them. As we grow, learn, and master ourselves, we achieve independence. We can pay our own bills, make our own choices, drive our own lives. But here is the kicker. That is not the finish line. The highest level of human effectiveness is actually interdependence. That's masterful, synergistic collaboration with others to achieve things you could never possibly do on your own. But the absolute golden rule here, you can't skip a step. You simply cannot be truly interdependent if you haven't first achieved true independence. Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, private victories, mastering yourself. This covers habits 1, 2, and 3. Habit 1 is be proactive. Now, reactive people use language like I can't or I have to. They essentially let their circumstances dictate their actions. They spend all their time stressing over their circle of concern. These are the things they have absolutely zero control over, like the weather, the economy, or what other people think of them. It is exhausting, right? But proactive people, they use language like I can and I choose to. They focus all their energies strictly on their circle of influence, the things they can actually do something about, starting with who they choose to be today. I absolutely love how Covey breaks down the word responsibility into responsibility. No matter what happens in your life, no matter how terribly someone treats you or how unfair your circumstances are, you still have total freedom to choose your response. Between whatever happens to you and how you react, there is a space. And in that space is your freedom to choose. When you take the initiative to own that choice, you completely empower yourself to create your situation rather than letting the situation create you. So once you realize you're the programmer of your own life, habit 2 is actively writing the program. Begin with the end in mind. This is all about personal leadership. Covey argues that all things are created mentally first, way before they become a physical reality. It's like building a house. You drop the blueprints long before you hammered the first nail, right? To guide your mental creation, you need a personal mission statement. This acts as your own written constitution, giving you 4 vital life support factors: security, guidance, wisdom, and power. When everything around you feels chaotic, this statement reminds you exactly who you are and where you're heading. With that end goal in mind, we arrive at habit 3, put first things first. This is where personal management and sheer willpower really come into play. Covey uses this time management matrix to sort tasks by what's urgent versus what's important. And honestly, the massive secret to being highly effective is relentlessly prioritizing quadrant 2. Those are activities that are important, but not urgent. Stuff like relationship building, long-term planning, personal growth. Because these things aren't screaming at us with a frantic deadline, they are incredibly easy to ignore. But when we do ignore quadrant 2, we end up living in a constant state of burnout in quadrant I, or worse, we escape into the completely useless quadrant 4. Just endlessly doom scrolling on our phones to numb our tired brains. So how do we make sure quadrant 2 actually happens? Covey suggests a brilliantly simple 4-step weekly planning process. First, identify your key roles. Maybe you're a parent, a manager, a spouse, a volunteer. Second, select 2 to 3 important goals for each of those roles for the upcoming week. Third, physically schedule time for those goals in your calendar before anything else gets in. And fourth, adapt daily. Because let's face it, life is going to throw you curveballs, but knowing your roles and goals keeps you totally grounded. As Covey profoundly says, the key isn't to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. Moving on to Section 3, Public Victories. Mastering relationships. Time to step out of the vacuum and learn to collaborate. This marks a really major shift in our journey. Real self-respect comes from dominion over yourself as a wholly independent individual. You've won the private victory. But interdependence, forming those deeply trusting, highly effective relationships with teams or families, is a choice that only independent people can make. Without a changeless inner core that you built back in the first 3 habits, stepping into a group setting will just result in you getting completely swallowed up by the influence and opinions of everyone else. The first step in this public sphere is habit 4, think win-win. Now clarify this for yourself. This is not just some clever negotiation tactic to get your way in a business deal. It is a total, all-encompassing philosophy of human interaction. It means you genuinely seek mutual benefit. And for win-win to actually work, you need 3 character traits: integrity to your values, maturity to balance your courage with consideration for others, and an abundance mindset. An abundance mindset is the deep fundamental belief that there is more than enough success and resources out there for everyone. It's stepping away from the idea that life is just a zero-sum game with only one tiny slice of pie to fight over. To truly get to that win-win scenario, we desperately need habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This requires a massive, massive paradigm shift in how we communicate. Just think about the last time a colleague or a partner was venting to you. Were you really listening to their pain? Or were you just running through your grocery list, waiting for them to pause so you could jump in and fix it? Most of us listen with the intent to reply, but Covey challenges us to practice empathetic listening. You have to listen with your ears, your eyes, and your heart, with the pure intent to truly comprehend the other person's reality. The crucial takeaway here is this brilliantly simple rule: diagnose before you prescribe. Imagine a doctor for a second. If you walk into a clinic with a terrible stomachache, they don't just immediately hand you a random prescription for blood pressure meds before they've even examined you, right? That would be total malpractice. Yet in communication, we do this all the time. We prescribe solutions way before diagnosing the actual problem. We have to use both sides of our brain to rephrase the other person's content and reflect their feelings. When people feel deeply, truly understood, their defenses drop, they open their minds, and actual problem solving becomes entirely possible. And when you bring together those win-win motives and those empathic communication skills, you unlock habit 6, Synergize. Listen, compromise just gets you the sum of the parts. It usually means both parties had to give up a little bit of what they wanted just to meet in the middle. But synergy means the whole is actually greater than the sum of its parts. It's the ultimate creative cooperation. In synergy, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It equals 3, or 10, or 100. By deeply valuing the mental, emotional, and psychological differences between people, you open up entirely new third alternatives that literally did not exist before you started collaborating. Finally, Section 4, the upward spiral. How in the world do we sustain this incredible level of effectiveness over a lifetime? Well, that brings us to habit 7, sharpen the saw. Imagine a lumberjack feverishly trying to cut down a massive tree with a completely dull saw. He's sweating, he's exhausted, he's barely making a dent. When you walk up and suggest he take a quick break to sharpen the blade, he snaps back, "I can't, I'm too busy sawing." Crazy, right? But that is exactly how most of us live our lives. We are too busy grinding away to take care of ourselves. Habit 7 is the habit of self-renewal. Taking the dedicated time to sharpen your own saw is the literal engine that drives and enhances all the other habits we've been talking about. To keep that spiral moving constantly upward, Covey insists we must regularly and evenly renew 4 vital dimensions of our lives. First, the physical. Actually eating nourishing food, getting your heart rate up, and prioritizing your sleep. Second, the mental. Continuous learning, reading challenging books, and maybe stepping away from the mindless entertainment for a bit. Third, the social and emotional. Deliberately practicing our public victories, listening deeply, uplifting the people around us. And fourth, the spiritual. taking quiet time for nature, meditation, or reaffirming that personal mission statement we talked about. Strengthening any one of these dimensions positively impacts all the rest, creating this incredible upward spiral of growth. Which brings us to a critical question to end on today. Take a close look at your own life right now. Which of these 7 habits is currently missing from your daily routine? Are you trapped reacting to your environment instead of being proactive? Are you neglecting your personal mission for urgent but totally unimportant tasks? Or maybe you aren't listening deeply enough to the people who matter most. Remember, real, enduring change always comes from the inside out. Don't wait for your boss, your partner, or your circumstances to magically change. Take responsibility and start your upward spiral today.